Hello and welcome to Boomer Live. Today we are here to talk about a match between Delhi Capitals and Rajasthan Royals. Oh, this was yet another cracker of a match for Rajasthan Royals because they yet again posted a score excess of 200 plus, and yet again a team found themselves to be in a close position. First up, let's get to that close debate which just happened. Was that a no ball or not? Nikhil, what do you reckon about it?
Uh, I think the call was okay. It was the umpire's call. Again, there are the laws clearly state that if it had there been a wicket of that ball, they would have definitely gone up to check. But because it is the way it is, they requested the umpire to go up, and he did go. So again, it's you had to accept that. I don't think Delhi had any other option given how the rules are so far. Maybe it's time to relook at this at the exact way to push to check for these no balls. I think one thing has to be very clear: whether you want the right decision or whether you want to keep it very ambiguous in terms of if it's a wicket, then we'll check. But then this could potentially be a difference between a team qualifying and not qualifying. So I think
Right.
that is also riding. I'm not saying they would have hit 3-3, but I surely think that break killed the momentum for Robin because Obed looked in far more pressure after having won for 3 sixes. So maybe he had an outside chance, but that break almost really killed it for Delhi.
Absolutely. When we speak about this, let's talk about invention which can possibly brought into cricket. Do you reckon there should be a review allowed for the teams to review these kind of decisions? Because we've seen previously, that one shot runs or let it be a wide, or now for example today the instance of no ball. Should there be a review given on these calls by the umpire rather than the wicket calls?
Sorry, I lost the last bit.
I was saying that should there be a review given upon the teams to review these kind of
Yeah,
decisions? Because more often than not, we see these kind of things being a turning point. We saw an instance like this back in 2019 when Dhoni walked down to the field. Where against a similar
again,
opposition as well. Yeah. So
yeah.
you reckon this should be given in hands of the teams, whether to review a one-shot run or a wide call or anything of that sort.
Oh, again, I have a very radical idea there. I think
Yeah.
you can get two third umpires and let them maybe third or fourth umpire and use them in a better way. They're anyways checking the line no balls. They can check
Right.
the waistline no balls as well. There is nobody that's stopping them from doing the same thing. Same is the case with the wide. Again, wide is a bit more tricky, but the umpire will say that okay, I did this call this way. It's one of the ways where they want to protect the on-field umpire. Again, whether it is fair or not, that's up for debate. But if you give it to teams, they'll use it haphazardly. We anyway see people reviewing middle of the bat hit balls for LBW, so that would make it too much. But I do feel it can be given up to the third umpire to check and ensure at least every ball that is delivered is legal or not. I think that is something that can definitely be controlled. And
Right.
as I said, no soft signal was a good move. And because this has happened, I'm hopeful that we'll see a solution very soon.
Right. It's very interesting that you pointed this out. Let's talk about the game now. Let's talk about that man, George Butler. Everybody wants to know, can he break that Virat Kohli's 973? Because he's on par for it. He scored 300s already. Virat Kohli had four back then, and he's looking in some sublime form. Every match, he just looks like he just cannot get out until he commits a mistake or a very drastic mistake. Because usually people try to get him out in the first couple of overs where they try to angle the ball in, get him LBW a ball, but that's also been not been done by any of the teams. It's just on that song, isn't it?
I mean, you have that phase, right? I think Virat had that phase in 2016 where there doesn't seem to be any problem. But today too, like in the last game as well, we saw George Butler take his time at the start, and there were quite a few misses and edges that went to his favor. So that is the thing about good form and luck, and how dearly would Kohli want something like that to happen to him. That his first 10 balls, if he gets two edges, he needs them to go to the fence, and then you will see a different Virat batting. So again, I'm not putting everything down to luck for Jaws. It's just I'm just saying that that is how your face reflects your good run, and vice versa. When you're doing most things right, you get good rewards for that. And again, Jaws Butler is a quality guy, and it was surprising that it took him so long to get these centuries, and now when he's getting them, again there is a set pattern. something that we
Yeah.
discussed. He's playing off the key threat, and then when he's enough, then he goes after the bowling. Then he doesn't care who is bowling. So pacing the innings is probably one of Josh's biggest strength, and we've seen that time and again in this very IPL itself.
Yeah. You reckon now the Rajasthan Royals is forming a pattern where they believe if they're batting first, let's score in excess of 200 so that no team even can come close to us. Because they know they have certain weaker edges, especially when it comes to the batting as well. Their lower middle order is yet to be tested on a bad day. It can be tested as well. And if they have to talk about their bowling, they have an issue with their death bowling. Even today, it could have gone either way. So now, if they're batting first, they do really pack a punch to score 200 plus, isn't it? More often than not.
I think they've got enough games batting first, which is I think very good for them.
5 out of 5 they
Uh,
won batting first.
Yeah, so that's a good experience as well to have on different kind of pitches in stadiums, so that you are accustomed to the way things can be thrown at you. As you rightly said, there are issues. Devdutt coming good today was good for them, but I think the form of Trent Bolt will worry them a bit. Same is the case with. I think Ashwin did a fabulous job again. Uh, I always felt that he should open the bowling given his success against all three Warner, Shaw, and Sarfraz. So that so slowly you see the holes filling for Rajasthan. There are still some holes left, but again, in terms of the rest of the teams, they probably look more in control of being able to fill those holes. Which is why you've seen they've brought Van Dessen and brought in Obed McCoy because they want that extra option. Today too, they tried Rian Parag for an over. Had Delhi saved enough batting, that really over could have turned the tide on them. But again, these are the calls you can afford to take when you are at the top of the table, and it doesn't cost too much because you have quality down there.
Right.
So a good sign so far, but again, as you said, there are areas to catch them off guard.
True, that's a good point because Rajasthan Royals just looks like a good, well-oiled machine, especially this season. And with the likes of George Butler coming good, they can possibly pull off something great this season for sure. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Delhi Capitals. They committed a lot of mistakes on the field, especially when it came to their tactics. You reckon not giving Shardul Thakur to ball after he had that first two really good overs, that was a mistake from their end because he already had a matchup with Devdutt Padikkal there, and he bowled a brilliant maiden over as well. And after that, not to just turn back to him to ball at all. What do you reckon was that idea behind that?
I think sometimes I feel captains go strictly by their plan is, and they don't adapt on the go. And I think this was one classic such example where maybe it was pre-decided that these are the overs these guys will bowl, and so they didn't want to bother with that. Which I find it's very irritating that if you have somebody who started so well, I'm sorry for the matches, but even if he didn't have a matchup, he was bowling well. He could have potentially nicked off even Joss or Padigal, and then that could have really opened the end up for them to really go after Rajasthan because we've seen Rajasthan being 70 odd for 4, 60 for 4 previously in the tournament as well. So I think that's where they were a bit rigid in terms of wanting to use Lalit Yadav more, which is fair. But again, it's on days it doesn't come off, it looks more worse than on the days it comes off.
Right. Let's talk about Delhi's batting, of course. You reckon today, especially, was a day where Rishabh Pant should have batted number three because you just felt like he could have come in and also, taken the game on. And also, tell me about his shot selection because he got dropped there once. And again, him trying to attempt that shot. Do you reckon that was a clear lack of immaturity from him? Lack of maturity from him, at least?
You can say that's just Rishabh Pant. I don't think he was trying to again play an aerial shot. He was beaten once again of the similar ball, and he got a chance. And Devdutt actually took a tougher catch. So credit to Devdutt as well for taking that good catch. And I think they still used their resources fairly better, if you have to say that, because they knew if they sent in Robin Powell, they are going to bowl a lot of spin to him, which is why they saved him. And you could see that chess battle between both Rajasthan and Delhi that, okay, we are still holding on to Powell, we are still holding on to Powell, they're sending Shardul, they're sending Aksar. So you could see that ebb and flow. And to be very honest, it was just about getting the strike to Rahman when when Prasidh Krishna was bowling. I
Right.
think that over that he bowled you can't get away with the maiden in the 19th over. Again, hats off to Prasidh for being able to execute his job very well. But 35, 36 and 12, Powell hit 360 in the last over. what I don't know what could have happened had he got the strike in that very over. But
Yeah,
again, like, these things happen. It's only in hindsight that we get to know that okay, it eventually did get close. But you always felt that they were only a few hits away because they kept going after the bowling. So I think both teams were trying to play their cards right. Some came off for them. It hasn't come off for Delhi so far. They're also missing runs from Aksar. So
yeah.
if Aksar Patel can get a few hits going, then the side has a lot more depth
Yeah,
to it.
absolutely. We have a question coming from Abhishek, of course. The question is basically, what about Sarfraz's future with Delhi after today's match? I think that also has to do with Yash Dul sitting on the wings because he's done extremely well in the domestic season. Same like Sarfraz, he's also coming off a great under 19 campaign. How long a rope will you give Sarfraz? But I know it's very early to judge him, but still, how long a rope will you give to Sarfraz?
I would personally give him a lot more time uh, because, again, there are a few issues in terms of short selection, but I think that can happen with anyone. He's been used up and down well. I think this is only the second game in a row that is batted at three. So
Right.
uh, it's about giving him enough game time first to get himself in. Again, tricky to judge people in a chase of 220. To be very honest, you have to go really when even before you are set. So which is why you saw Rishabh also play that shot. So these things can happen. Uh, Hopefully he gets a few more games at least because once I think Mitchell Marsh comes back, he's anyways going to bat at three. So then Sarfraz would very well go down in the batting order in any which way.
Right. Another question which you're coming is also something which I wanted to ask. Rahman Powell batting at number eight. Of course, you mentioned about the spin matchup which he had, but still, number eight for Rahman Powell is way too low because this lad bats at number four for West Indies, and here you're batting him at number eight. Though you can say today it almost came off, but still, you want him to bat at number six at least, right?
Again, I don't think it's that as much. It is about the position as much it is with the role that he has to play. And I think because they always had Pant doing, I think Lalit also did a fair job. I mean, again, it was a tricky pitch. Not many people got going, and the scoreboard pressure always gets to you. Invariably, it eventually does get to you, whichever way you want to call it. So I think Lalit also tried his best to drag his team across. Could they have sent him before Akshar Patel? I don't know, but you could clearly understand why they were holding him back. And it was just a matter of two hits. Had they hit one more hit from the end of Lalit and Akshar, and if you needed 30, even 35 of two, and Powell wasn't strike for the remaining majority of those 12 balls, he would have backed himself to chase this down. So in that sense, I think I could understand why they held Robin Powell back for so long. But again, he was nearly out first ball that he played off Chahal. So again, had it dismissed, had it been dismissed, it would have been like okay, fair enough. That's what it's got out to because the matchup is too big for Robin Powell, and we've seen that happen already in the West Indies series. So you either push him at three, or again, but the conditions have to be very important. That you don't give him like a okay, there are enough spin bowlers, don't give it to them. Something that they did tried before, and now this time they've gone too far back. So I think it's okay. They're trying to find the best fit for him.
Right. Before we go to that question as well, let's talk about Prasidh Krishna's at 19th over. That over was a decisive moment in the game, isn't it? Because if that over would have gone anywhere else, if it was 20 of the last over, you absolutely back Rahman Powell to back it and just go for it. And he almost did. He went for three, he hit three sixes, and it was just one hit away as well. You tell me, I mean, we did speak about Lalit Yadav in brief, but at that point of time, do you reckon that Lalit Yadav should have rightly given Robin Powell that single instead of trying to go over the square leg looking at the short boundary? Because, just looked like Lalit Yadav was so predetermined in choosing his shots even before Prasidh Krishna actually delivered his ball.
Yeah, but I think Prasidh Krishna was a much better, smarter in that over. We heard that on air as well with Kevin Peterson explaining well for a change that he was bowling full and wide. So Lalit thought that okay, let's sit and then use that pace and the length to get into the gap. But then he bowled short, and then he kept mixing it up. So then it becomes really hard for you to line it up, even if you want a single out of it, because then there is predetermination from both ends. The ball is also thinking the same thing, and the batsman is also trying to read the bowler. So it eventually happens. Again, it was a good rule that we have that the new batter is on strike, because had Lalit skied it and Powell was on strike, things could have been different. So these are
Yeah.
very small things, but I think Prasid bowled really well and probably deserved the maiden. Again, tells you why you can't blame Kuldeep for not getting a boundary there.
Right. Yeah, today has been a day where we've been talking about rules so much, and let's talk about that new rule as well because we haven't delved into it much. But we're right in the middle of the IPL, but we have to talk about it because this new rule where the batsman cannot be on strike after crossing is a very interesting one, isn't it? Especially helping the teams which are defending and making sure that the new batsman who comes in is in strike, and it definitely favors the bowling side a lot more, isn't it?
I think it could favor the batting side as well. If the right guy doesn't get out and the wrong guy gets out, you don't want the wrong guy to be on strike just because they crossed. So we've seen those scenarios as well where some days people can have off days. It happens with the best of them. So in that regards, yes, definitely it helps the side. It negates the advantage of just being able to cross because you can. So
Right.
I think that's a welcome change. It helps in the last over chases as well. That the free hit that people used to get, that it's okay, you get out, will cross, and I'll be on strike. That is now ruled out. So you have to hold your end up, and it just adds a bit more drama, if you want to call it that, in the final over of a chase.
Right. We've got an interesting question as to how do you stop George Butler because he seemed, as we already spoke about it. But still, how do teams plan out a dismissal against him now? Because now he looks like the trump card player. You get George Butler, you're right into it because you never know with Rajasthan Royals. It could be a bad day, means you can get through the middle order very quickly as well. How do you get him out? Any thoughts from you?
I think it's to be very simply. I think you have to bring on your best bowlers, no matter which time of the game it is. If it means you have to get a spinner on the first over, get that. I think when you have somebody who's batting so well, and when there's a definite pattern, you have to try and force him into playing that shot early. I mean, we've
Hmm.
seen enough games now where he's happy to defend, and then whenever he spots that, okay, now is the time when I could have a weaker bowler bowling, then he really goes after the bowling, and that's when you have to really cash in and probably think a bit more, plan for that situation that okay, we've kept him quiet, and now we know this is the over that he wants to target. So who do you bowl then? What is your best bet at that point of time, and then you get that bowler on. And again, it is about execution of your plans, and sometimes you will come good. The form Josh Butler is in, he's probably more likely to find an answer. But then that's what the game is. This is why you want people in form so that they are able to make most of that and make good decisions while batting. So yeah, I think
Right.
it will be very interesting to see how teams go. I think they'll all go very hard now to get Butler when he's defending, because I think that is the best time to get him out. It's the best time to get any batter out in any which
Yeah.
ways. So let's see, some very interesting matches coming up for RR. So let's see how
Yeah.
people attack Butler.
RR are playing RCB, so as an RCB fan, I should be very careful of that next. Last time around, he was not out as well, so I hope Josh Hazelwood is having an eye on him. Talking about it, let's see how it went on the fantasy yard. Because if you have Butler, unless you're an opposition team, you will be having a good day if you have Butler in your team because you want Butler to do well. As a fantasy player, what are the chances of having Butler in your team as a captain? Because how often do you back him to score? Because last match you feel him, okay, 100 तो आ गया, अगले मैच में मारेंगे कि नहीं, that you always have that doubt. So did you have him in your team and did you have him as a captain? That's what I want to ask first up.
This
Oh,
tells you everything.
absolutely. You aced it, didn't you?
Yes. Again, it's as I said, the times have been such that you have to back the form, guys. And today, that is what happened. You saw everybody who's taking wickets, scoring runs, did that. I think Devdutt was the only differential, and it's okay. Not many people brought Devdutt in, so it was a very good day for me. Regarding the question of Butler, see, you have to back the player in form. There is the probability of him scoring is far more than it is of him not scoring. So
Right.
you have to keep the law of average, the doubt mind aside. And if you want to risk, take a risk in team two, team three, as I always said. I also had team two where I had Pant and Samson as captain, vice captain. So you can try that as well. obviously. But I think in the if you're playing small league where you're likely to face 2 to 3 guys only in a contest, it's much better to go with the guy who's in form. And again, because he's making good decisions. If he was getting lucky runs, maybe you could have said that okay, let's not go after him. He can't sustain this. But if he's making good batting decisions, he's hardly looking troubled. Then there is no reason not to make him the captain and vice captain. Even making him vice captain can be troublesome on days like these when he's giving you so many points that the other guys cannot catch up to him no matter what they do. So that's how you have to go about it in terms of what contest you're playing. You pick your captain according to that.
Absolutely, because if you have George Butler, you should bank on him, and he's in that kind of form. He's like Virat Kohli of 2016, isn't it? Before we talk about the course which we're doing, we have an interesting question here. It is basically umpires check front foot no balls, but no high full tosses. I think that's an interesting question because every ball umpires do check the front foot no ball, regardless of what the ball is, whatever the event is. But why don't we make it a no ball for every no ball? Umpire should check it, regardless of what it is. How about that rule coming in?
Yeah,
Third
it is.
umpire.
It is exactly what I said right at the start that you need umpires to call all kind of legal deliveries, whatever there is there. That if a ball is delivered, it should be with the third umpire that he gets to tell you whether this ball was legal or not. Then it can be a wide no ball, or like if the ball is pitched outside the margin line in a full toss, or if it's a back foot no ball, whatever that is, any form of no balls, I think it's best that you leave it to the third umpire so that you get the right decision. Because
Right.
it's a no ball, it makes a massive difference. The next ball is a free hit. There are too many variables involved here. So uh, hopefully today is the day where the seeds are sown for a better rule.
I have another suggestion. Just take the on-field umpires off. Anyways, for everything, we're going to the third umpire. I think we are soon going to that phase where we might just have the TV umpire calling everything because for a 4 year going there, for a 6 year going there, for a wicket, of course. And now even for a wide and no ball means, of course, just let's just have a TV umpire instead of a non-field umpire because it makes more sense. And and you umpires also can save their face in this hard hitting era as well. Like talking about all those, of course, Nikhil is saying a course on fantasy sports with Mad About Sports. As Nikhil always explained, when you're going with a standard team, you should back it, and at the same time, you should have a second team as well on in case if your standard team fails. So, Nikhil, how important it is to have a second team at the same time to back a cliche or a mainstream standard team because the players are in form, and at the same time, you have a better chance of winning when you back a mainstream team as well, isn't it?
So yes, again, a very good example today as well that most people had George Butler captain or vice captain, but here in such games it is the bowling or the all-rounder side that defines the game in terms of who is that less likely player to come off that comes good for you. Like now, I had Hetmeyer purely because they were batting first and he's been in form. But people would have dropped Hetmeyer and gotten Devdutt Padikkal, they would have won more. Now I had Khalil Ahmed and Shardul Thakur. Again, Shardul didn't bowl all of them, but he got a maiden out, maiden over in, and Khalil dropped a catch of his own bowling. So it could have cost me, but it did not. Again, because Khalil was not picked by too many, you win there. Prasidh Krishna was not picked by too many. So even with Butler as a captain, there were so many other options because Chahal only took 1 wicket. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind that when you're making a safety, you are going to still take one or the two risks eventually with the form of the current player. Like Chen Bolt didn't take any wicket today. But if you had Prasidh Krishna and Khalil Ahmed, you would have won a lot more with George Butler as captain. So these are the small margins that sometimes dictate the fantasy contest, and that's what I've tried to cover in the course as well. That you have to factor in all of these things, smaller details, and then have a backup team which covers up the risk that you have taken in the first team. That if you've not made Butler captain in one, make him in team two, and then pick the bowlers accordingly. So that who will he hit or who will he get out to when he's towards the end of the inning. So all these factors are considered, and that's how we stay in this for a longer time. And that's why we have more lemonade days and very less wavy hair days, so that we are into profit for a long time.
Absolutely. If you want to have a lemonade day every day, so what we mean by lemonade is when you absolutely have a jackpot of a day in fantasy cricket or fantasy sports, whatever you play. So if you want to have a lemonade day every day for free. It's one platform you have to head on to. That's Boomer 11, because it's totally free to play and you can absolutely test your fantasy skills right there, picking your teams, matching different combinations, make as many teams you want using our Boomer coins. And of course, you have a chance. You can stand a chance to win some exciting prizes there, where you can win this IPL prize worth up to $5,000. So why are you waiting for that? Just head on there, make your team for tomorrow's contest, because this weekend you have 4 games coming up, 4 high octane clashes. So you don't want to miss out on that. And of course, talking about our content, we will be there, every day on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to that, because we'll be bringing some exciting giveaways as well on the way. There's an exciting weekend coming up, so expect something exciting coming for you people for them from that end. Then of course, talking about the Instagram, we'll be bringing some exciting memes and fantasy predictions and everything what you love. So follow our Instagram page, and talking about Twitter as well. We'll be doing some spaces in the coming days, so you don't want to miss out on that. So it's a complete bonanza for you from our end. So follow us everywhere possible and have fun with Boomer 11. And thank you, Nikhil, for joining, because it was wonderful talking about it. We of course discussed in preview on Twitter as well. Most of our fantasy predictions came true.
Yes, maybe we have more such lemonade days.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Have a good
Good
time.
night, lad.